Beethoven versus Chopin, the two famous composers. There are many levels on which a comparison of Beethoven and Chopin could be made. One might be an analysis of their pianistic ability, another perhaps their contribution to the development of the piano. What we're going to do is compare them in more detail than just numbers and traits, so you can decide for yourself who comes out on top. So, without further ado, let's see what Beethoven and Chopin achieved throughout their iconic lives in the world of music. Ludwig van Beethoven, 1770 to 1827, was a composer who bridged the transition from the classical world to the romantic. His feet were firmly in the traditions and expectations of Mozart, Haydn and to an extent Bach, but his mind, as we can hear in his work, was far away in the musical future. He was a gifted and innovative pianist who often performed his own compositions even though deafness increasingly hampered his ability to do so as he got older. In total, Beethoven composed 32 sonatas for piano, Opus 2, Opus 111, and 5 extraordinary piano concertos, the last of which received the title the Emperor Concerto. Beethoven was also a great symphonic composer. He wrote 9 complete symphonies in his brief time on Earth, each a masterpiece in its own right. Such was Beethoven's creativity and invention, that he pushed the classical symphonic form into a completely uncharted territory and paved the way for other great symphonic composers. Beethoven is often considered to be the first tone poet as his music is so powerful and evocative. He allowed the composers who followed him to compose in the way they did because of his work. In addition to his piano and symphonic work, Beethoven single-handedly made the string quartet his very own vehicle for rich, emotional expression. Frédéric Chopin, Frédéric François Chopin, 1810 to 1849, has been described by many as the poet of the piano. Similar to Beethoven, Chopin's main instrument was the piano, and like Beethoven, he too pushed the boundaries of pianistic technique and composition. What is undeniable is that he used his legendary facility as a pianist to create works of inordinate beauty and sensitivity that have been unparalleled by other composers that followed. Unlike Beethoven, Chopin adored the company of others, and people were drawn to the somewhat enigmatic figure that he must have cast. Chopin may well be thought of as a lyrical poet, although he had very little interest in literature. His association with the French author George Sand is widely acknowledged as important in Chopin's life, as she was a huge support and inspiration to him. Chopin's compositions stemmed from his desire to express whatever was inside him, and far from being the withering melancholy that many suggest, he was a formidably gifted composer who made a substantial contribution to the world of romantic music. Chopin centered almost his entire output on works for the piano, or ones that brought the piano into the main spotlight. He is perhaps best known for his nocturnes, polonaises, and mazurkas. Equally famous compositions by Chopin include his terrifying etudes, of which there are 27, 3 piano sonatas and 2 piano concertos. He wrote no symphonies, operas, or indeed any songs or string quartets, but what he left us with is a superb collection of pieces for piano that still remain amongst the most performed pieces today. Beethoven and Chopin. Both Beethoven and Chopin led short, difficult lives in which they each significantly furthered the development of the piano as an instrument, as well as providing us with a repertoire that is unique. They each crafted the cornerstone of contemporary piano technique. Beethoven was able to extend his work into ever more elaborate and sustained compositions, whilst Chopin excelled in smaller but correspondingly inventive, intimate pieces. As pianists, they probably could not have been more different. Beethoven was supposed to have actually broken the strings on his piano as his deafness increased, whilst Chopin was described as a delicate technician. As far as we can ascertain from Chopin's correspondence, he admired Beethoven's Appassionata Sonata, Opus 57, but otherwise expressed no particular like or dislike about his music. Beethoven, as far as we know, knew nothing of Chopin's work, and given how infrequently Chopin performed, never could have heard him play a piece. So, what the two think of each other isn't very clear. But, What do you think of them having learned about the details we've discussed here? They're both greats of music, and especially the piano, which is why the choice between them is a very difficult one for most.